Here, an IP and INTZ about to throw down for our viewing pleasure. Hibana straight away removed. Anticipate a Thatcher coming in for the nip ban. Although we are on Consulate, things can be a little bit different over here. But it will be, of course, the Thatcher. Such a high ban rate inside of Siege at the moment. Who else really is it going to be? Biggest question, I guess, Gio, is on these defender bans, because we've seen some variation with this today.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if a Malusi made the way into that, or a Kaid as well. Kaid can be pretty popular, especially if you have a Thatcher ban as well. Valkyrie's going to be one, kind of a classic for Consulate. I should have thought of that, and then I would have maybe looked a bit smarter. But yeah, classic for Consulate, especially because of the propensity for jump outs on this map. So many windows, so many options to jump out. You might as well just get rid of her.
Nomad making her way through on the attacking side of things does lead it to be a bit safer, I guess, to play on those windows. We're getting back into Echo ban meta. And I'm not sure how I feel about it. Echo coming in there as the final ban from INTZ does, of course, mean that we have the usual suspects available. Mirror, for example, can be quite popular here. We sometimes see some mirrors played inside of Antechamber. We are going to see Garage as the first site chosen here by INTZ. Fairly standard lineups coming out so far. Nothing really too unusual. NIP, a team that have not really made that transition yet into the ace. And maybe I should say more specifically Kamikaze. He's still locked into that Thermite more often than not.
Yeah, and obviously Hibana not an option here either. Not that this Hibana would be a particularly popular option for attacking onto this site necessarily. The thing that Kamikaze and NIP on the whole are going to have to deal with is the fact that INTZ have 6-picked onto a Kaid. I mentioned during the operator ban phase that Kaid bans can be extremely popular if a Thatcher is already banned. The reason being is if you allow the defenders to have access to those Kaid Electro Claws, while you as an attacker don't have anything to get rid of that as far as utility goes, it can be really hard to get some of those key walls open. Now here on Consulate, it's particularly pertinent that attackers do take control of the story above the garage, most notably Piano, which is the room that directly is above the site. From there, you can open up the floor, and oftentimes you can get rid a lot of that denial utility from above. So if you can figure out where the Electro Claws are, and then get control of the room above the site, you can actually just shoot them off from there. But it does require you to actually get that control in the first place. Otherwise, it can be quite difficult to remove them without a Thatcher. So that's something that INTZ are really leaning into off the back of those operator bans.
Vit's playing inside of the bathroom. It's a typical spot to place a mute, as it can be very difficult to get rid of the mute from there. In the fact that mute has a lot of nice tools to hold on for a very long period of time. The top of the wall is shot out for a C4 toss. There's a shield. The hatch has been left soft, so you can use the shotgun, of course, to open that on up. And there will be ADSs in there to stop grenades from coming in. But that ADS has since been burnt. We can already see that Vitz is trying to find some sort of safety in there. He will eat one of the grenades and not actually see too much damage, but there is in fact going to be a zero cam that's able to ping him out. Now he is going to spot it at the right time, just removing the toilet paper there so we can get a bit further in, really desperately trying to find a little bit more space inside of that bathroom area to keep himself out of the splash damage.
I really like the use of the Argus cam because I was actually wondering if they were going to use it in this Piano or Antechamber floor to get more... Whoa! Really good C4 onto Pino. I was going to say to get more intel on what's going on below, and maybe then they would have known that Pino was getting ready in that position to fire off the C4. As it stands, they didn't. And VNX is going to be adding on to the kill count too, removing Psycho from the game.
NIP have yet to find a significant response to this. They've lost Pino, they've lost Psycho, that's a lot of soft destruction, and the job isn't really done here inside of Piano. There's still a lot of that floor that you'd like to get open. Kamikaze is going to get the breach open, Muzi's arguably way out of position there, still worried about a flank. Kind of speaks to the lack of intel potentially on the side of NIP as Kamikaze moves his drone on in, just seeing if there is a chance that he can get this diffuser down. So many players from the side of INTZ still alive. VNX holding a vertical angle there. He will have at least had a sound cue that Julio has moved on through. Smoke canister is now getting tossed on out as Hornetau's trying to deny this last second push. Julio with a aggressive stance on these blue spiral stairs is going to get taken on out. Is this going to be a flawless round? Yes, it is. Geo INTZ coming up with all the kills. NIP cannot find a single kill in response.
Oh, I love it. And I mean, I think that so much of NIP's struggle came from the fact that they didn't take that decisive control of Piano. It's hard to do that when you're being killed from below. The aggressive positioning that INTZ showed down below was really good. I was wondering if it was a bit risky, given that those players from NIP certainly have what it takes to be able to win the 1v1s through the floor. But really importantly, NIP didn't have anyone on yellow stairs or yellow door who could hold angles into the site itself to prevent those defenders from pushing up. And that meant that INTZ really had free control to do that. It took them ages to clear out the bathroom itself, and I actually think, if I'm not mistaken, it was more that the player in bathroom jumped down the hatch rather than actually being killed. A lot of time wasted there on the behalf of NIP, and then you try and push in through archives at the end from the back of the building. You don't know that there's a guy sitting there in Harry Potter to shotgun you down. It was just, yeah, not fully informed there from NIP. I think they were missing some intel that they could have really done with. And when you think about the fact that they brought a Zero, for example, to have those Argus cameras, have the extra information on the defenders, sorry, and still lacked it, that's concerning, and probably a lot of the reason why they haven't brought him again this round.
Kamikaze this time going to be on the ace. Obviously the smokes do provide a lot of value and you can open things up from a little bit further away than you can at Thermite. But the main sort of battleground for this site is going to be yellow stairs. Hornetau is very well set up here. Surrogate and 3 ADSs. 2 magnets at the top of your screen that you can see as well, just in that corner. So we can stay there for quite a long time. Now, NIP have to try and deal with this in some way. Smoke canister, they're going to be used to burn out one of the magnets. That's now going to allow an asphyxiating bolt to come on in, but Hornetau isn't too worried about playing aggressive onto that. That's arguably a waste there from Psycho. And still, NIP are no closer to really getting to the meat of this take. It sometimes comes through as a coordinated push. The Surrogate now will be burnt, as even more throwables are coming on in. Even drones now being used to try and burn that Surrogate. Now the nades come on in, and Hornetau will be taken out. But at what cost? That is a great load of utility that NIP have had to throw at just one player.
Serious amount of utility, and it's taking me back to the game that NIP played against FaZe Clan here on Consulate, where if you remember correctly, NIP did try to take the yellow stairs. They sent Pino swinging in through the window with no one coming in through bathroom at the same time to actually pinch onto the smoke player at the top. What it meant is the defenders could continue to take control of that area, and we just saw that Duds has taken his position at the top of yellow stairs. So after all of that effort, everything that NIP went through, they didn't actually take the control of the place anyway. All they had was a kill onto Hornetau. They've added the kill count onto Vitz now. They have the man advantage, but man, that's still a wasted opportunity.
The whole point to get yellow stairs is so that you can use it as an attacker, not just remove the players that are on there, because, as you say, Duds is now in this area as well, and NIP really no closer to clearing him out. They've instead opted for a full switch up. They're now going to try and push in from admin, and they probably do well to do so because there's only 25 seconds left on the timer. Duds in a power position here from this yellow stairs can do something to try and deny this push, as Drunks finds a really important kill. Duds a second. Nobody has paid any attention to Drunks on this circle stair. And the players for NIP continue to fall. Kamikaze trying to do what he does, and that is get the plant down, and it looks like he could be successful as there is a lack of intel on the side of INTZ. How long can the post plant be held? Kamikaze finds a very important kill there, making this a 2 versus 1. VNX has to fight his way through long desk now, and he isn't working off any intel. You can see that in the way that he's moving. Pino picks the last kill up. NIP with a quick switch up there that was required to get them that round.
It was a weird round. I think that if Kamikaze hadn't have hit those last couple of shots that he did, that would have gone a different way. Because even when they ended up making their push in, as you correctly noted, they weren't paying attention to Drunks, who was on Spiral Stairs, but also Duds got a kill from Yellow Stairs. It just adds on to that story that we're telling about the importance of actually taking control of that part of the map, if that's what you're going to invest yourself into. It's something that NIP just gave up on. You can debate on the value of removing a smoke early from the round, because then you don't have the plant denial later on. But what that also involves is the understanding that you're actually going to get to the point where you even get to plant. Now, NIP actually did do that in that round. They did it successfully too. But a lot of the way that round was going made it quite touch and go as to whether or not they would be able to do that successfully because of the control that they'd still allowed INTZ to have. Now, I think we have the community poll ready to show us, and I'm really interested on this one as well, just because of recent results. Unsurprising that NIP still do take the lead in that. 73% of you think that they are going to win, while just 27% think that INTZ are going to win. But I'll be honest, Ollie, I think that if the INTZ phase game hadn't have gone how it did, that 27% probably wouldn't be as high as it is.
Oh, certainly not. But you've got to remember, Gio, INTZ are the best team in Brazil at the moment. They beat FaZe, who were previously the best team in Brazil. And now NIP have a chance to be the best team in Brazil if they beat INTZ.
You've got to beat INTZ, and then you're the best team in Brazil.
That's how it works. It gets passed around. That's exactly what we're dealing with here. INTZ have got a lot to prove because they've shown us that they can do it. It's just whether they can do it consistently or not. Now, they're a level pegging here with NIP. 1 round apiece. Hornetal with an opener onto Muzi. That was, in fact, quite an aggressive run out there, and Julio's air jab's obviously not in the right place. You see Hornetal making his way back into the map successfully.
This is another round where NIP have decided to bring Zero, an operator that they invested one of their slots into back in round number 1, but didn't necessarily get the results that they wanted, as they still seem to lack intel. Because they're attacking onto the split site of Archives and Tellers, it makes sense that they want an operator who can provide that multi-story intel as well. Duds, however, still present here in admin, playing as many Mozzies do, ready with a C4 to throw. He knows that there are players on these windows, and he's going to get aggressive. Can he find his prey? No. Pino gets the headshot, punishes him, and as a direct result, takes admin for NIP.
NIP still have info here, but there's a lot of players on the side of INTZ that are fairly fluid in their movements. There's lots of rotations that can be made. Hornetal's going to make his rotation along with VNX down to this basement level and into Archives and Garage. Lots of intel to be gathered by Vitz, as his scanner will actually work all the way through the Visa room and upstairs into admin, and he'll be able to pinpoint just exactly how many players on the side of NIP are pushing from that side and just feed that information through to his team. Vertical angles being open now as well. Julio takes some damage. It's continually gathering this information. Going to give him a good indication as to where the plant is going to come down, or at least where a push might be. VNX able to take down Psycho. Drunks another. Look at all of these valuable kills that we're seeing Vit set up for his team. Julio, they're going to get taken out on that spiral stairs, and it's all going to come down to Pino. He hasn't got a great deal of health. He's got 15 seconds to play, and he's going to be pushing in now to circle desk. Gets himself into an engagement. Hornetal quite rightly backs off, says, I don't want any part of that, but yeah, maybe I do. I'll pick up the last 2 instead, as INTZ take round number 3 there, defending the split site very well.
It's really nice as well to see that It seems every player on INTZ is providing some equitable amount of value. You know, they're all coming in and doing their job. I'm not necessarily seeing any one player who's not showing up in any way. It doesn't even necessarily have to be in kill counts, but you can just tell by the way that they're positioned around each other, the way that they're ready for the trades, the way that they're catching out players from NIP, the way that they're ready to fill each other's shoes if one of them finds themselves in an unfavorable situation, or worse, dead. It's really good from INTZ, I have to say, because this isn't the INTZ that we were seeing at the start of the stage. And even if it is too late for them to qualify for this Copra Elite 6, it certainly leaves me to have more optimistic expectations for them heading into the next stage of the BR6. Because really, with a lot of the changes to rosters that have happened in Brazil, we came into this stage or season with the expectation that many of those improvements would be done spread over the 3 stages that we have this year. It was a really big loss for INTZ to lose Alamau, who was their, let's be honest, kind of ringleader of the roster of the team, and we did have concerns about how much that was going to potentially negatively affect them, even if we knew that Hornetown was really good to step into his shoes. It's a big thing to lose. It's a big change to face. And at this part of the latter end of the first stage, INTZ are showing that actually they've picked up a lot and improved a ton already in a tiny space of time.
It's just so enthusing to see that that improvement can be measured and seen week on week in terms of how many more rounds they're picking up. You know, they're doing very well here, and our last round was probably as good as they get in terms of a split bomb site defense. They did everything exceptionally well. And NIP, whilst yes, they are making mistakes and INTZ capitalizing on them, they're not playing very well. They're not giving INTZ the respect, I think, that they have garnered at this stage. There is, however, an interesting hold of that bathroom area. It was hotly contested in the last time that we saw basement as a site and garage. This time, there's a lot of that has been left soft, and I just kind of worry a little bit. Sorry, we are inside a Preston lobby. My apologies. That makes a lot more sense now. I was getting a little bit concerned there at the setup, but everything has fallen into place. Yellow stairs is going to be contested, as that surrogate is proving quite the nuisance here.
NIP have already burned about half the round down, and many of those players are still outside of the building. At this point, INTZ have just got to wait for them to move in. Meeting, or projector as it's sometimes known, above the lobby side is still being held on by INTZ. That's Hornetown up here. It's pretty paramount that the attackers do clear that out. With Duds at the top of yellow stairs as well, it's no surprise that NIP are focusing so much of their attention onto this top floor, but they're not being very swift about it. And while this is a team that are maybe known for their slower attacks, it's not something you can just shrug your shoulders and say, oh well, that's our playstyle. Because you can't have that. You leave the defenders alive for a really long time, you're going to supremely struggle when it comes to actually executing onto the site itself.
Everything quiet. The calm before the storm here for NIP. They're left to try and find themselves an entry. Psycho will be the one to find it with a kill over onto Drunks. An aggressive swing into the bathroom is going to pay, as well as that picks him up 2 kills. Now site control has been gained, and Duds is left to try and scramble. Looking to maybe make his way up yellow stairs. No sign of the plank going down just yet. Muzi is, of course, going to be holding that as a cross as Julio tries to get the plant down. There are players from NIP on upside down rappel that are going to make this very difficult to try and retake and get back in. With that plant being confirmed, it now puts even more pressure on these defenders and even more pressure on poor old Duds. Nothing left but a hatch drop and Hail Mary. They'll be straight into Julio's waiting arms.
very effective from NIP to gain control of the public bathroom because it's directly in the middle of both of those sites. That's actually why when we have this site being defended, so much defensive utility will be invested into that area. And that's oftentimes where you'll see something like a mute be played, maybe a smoke sometimes. Usually there's a ton of mute jammers, at least one shield, maybe a couple of ADSs for good measure, all in there because it's such a valuable part of the site. You can hold off attackers coming in from virtually any direction, and you can use holes above the wall into piano to deny, whether that be with a Toxic Babe canister or C4, and you can hold direct lines of sight through to the lobby door, which is oftentimes where the default plant spot is in there. So as an attacker, to have taken that space for yourself, it means that regardless of the fact that there are defenders still upstairs who can hop down onto the site at a moment's notice, they're immediately going to be caught out in those lines of sight and in those, I suppose, defensive positions as they still remain despite the fact that it's the attackers holding them. And that means that NIP can just clear up those last couple of players despite the fact that they didn't do a thorough clear on the top floor earlier on in the round.
We're now going to be taken back upstairs. We're going to go to console, a meeting. Big change on the side of INTZ is no Aruni, which means no surrogates. Which means that yellow stairs could be a little bit of a problem for them, because that was one of the things that was a big key part in how long they were able to keep control of those yellow stairs. That single laser gate placed on the north window did so much for them. Now NIP got across that by either burning it or throwing utility from the skylight. And whilst they got the kills there, they did struggle greatly in terms of getting an actual body on there, and it in fact forced NIP to make a full change in their approach. So for some reason INTZ have chosen not to bring it this time. A battle will rage on in this yellow stairs. We've got Duds playing there, but interestingly the bathroom isn't open for him to rotate on into, so could find himself coming under some problems. Sure, he's got a couple of ADSs, but already some aggression. We're seeing a player inside of Connector Psycho. He's been taken down.
Certainly an interesting change to the defensive setup, but so far it's worked for them after getting that nice early kill onto Psycho. Kamikaze is still also playing hard breach, so if they do need to open up any walls, it's still an option, but it's definitely not as practical to do it with a thermite, especially if you want to open up the meeting wall. It's not going to be an option anymore, though. Duds clears that one up, and that is once again this player sat at the top of the yellow stairs. Rotate or not into bathroom, he is getting work done. Now NIP are just down to the last 3 members.
Seems like such a strange round. Pino tries to bring us back to some sort of normality with these attackers actually getting a foothold. He finds an important kill onto Hornetal. The smoke. Live ping information for Duds is going to give him enough to pre-fire from as Pino destroys whatever utility it was. It looks like a bulletproof camera, but Drunks is still on a bit of a tear. He finds himself a second onto Muzi. Pino inside a connector. He's got nowhere really that he can go. He's stuck inside of the bomb site. No diffuser in hand. Left to try and fight his way out tooth and nail. He'll grab one, but not the second. The trades from INTZ just too good. And a strange attack from NIP.
It seems to me that at this point, and not even just because of this game, but even previous games as well, NIP do not feel comfortable in executing a yellow stairs take. I just don't believe that they do. We saw what happened back in round number 2, where they just invested so much utility and then just let it go. I mentioned how they played it back when they were playing against FaZe on Consulate, where even though they really did commit to the take then, it didn't work out because they only had one player coming in through the yellow window and no one trying to pressure bathroom. In this round, we did see a player was on the bathroom rappel, but no attempt was made to push in through. And yeah, sure, Duds probably would have been able to hear a player come in and still shoot in through the soft wall. But if that player from NIP had been faster, more opportunistic, maybe they would have been able to clear Duds as well. Regardless, you don't even have to rely on that to clear out the guy at the top of yellow stairs, because there was no one on skylight, no one on yellow window. The whole point is NIP looked at that setup and they said, we're just going to ignore this. And what did Duds do? He got 3 kills. He could get that line of sight all the way through into connector. He could continue to push up. Even at the very end, when it was just Pino remaining, he still had that power position. Oh, actually, I think he might have got 4 kills then, if he got Pino at the end. NIP can't afford to ignore that defensive position if the defenders are going to use it as effectively as they are. It's simply not an option. You can't... It's the mark of a good team to look at a situation that may be uncomfortable for you, but still figure out a way to deal with it.
I'm just wondering if INTZ have kind of outplayed in the map veto. I know it seems like a strange point to drag back to, but with the maps that were available up until the final couple, it was Villa or Consulate. Well, we've never really seen NIP play Villa. So INTZ have played Consulate a couple of times. There's been talk before, and it's been Tim that's brought it up, as obviously a veteran of the LATAM English-speaking stream. The NIP do run the risk sometimes of getting a little bit too predictable. And I wonder if INTZ are taking a bit of advantage of that here and really playing into what they're expecting NIP to do. And that may be why we're seeing some of this almost frustration creep in from NIP's playstyle. Because with Psycho being inside of Connector so early in that last round, you can only say that that's either opportunistic or frustration, trying to force an entry in some way. Now, they're attacking onto Garage this time. Last time, we really didn't see it go too well. In fact, it was way back in round number 1, and it was a flawless round for INTZ. It set the tone, almost, for this fixture and how it's going so far. And I know that the scoreline suggests that there's only 1 round in it so far, and that INTZ haven't got any significant advantage. But it's the way that they've been playing, and the expectations that we have from both these teams, and how INTZ have kind of surpassed that a little bit.
Oh, it feels like different players, absolutely. Out goes the C4, but it won't catch Psycho. Instead, he will have been able to land the Selmas onto the wall, as well as the smokes too, immediately flushing out the player from Bathroom. But because no one has been lost from INTZ, that means that he dropped down the hatch, and everyone's going to be in there. The nade is going to remove any of that utility that's present on the bathroom door, on the garage door. Drunks is going to take the opportunity to throw up the C4 rather than going in for the next Electric Claw. He's a little bit late though, because by the time he does do it, the garage door is already open.
Toxic Babe canisters are required now to deny that push in. Pino this time is alive as well, as we do have all 10 players still alive on the server as we enter this final 15 or so seconds. We might be seeing an engage here. Duds is going to find one onto Julio. It is traded instantly as Muzi goes huge. Gets shut down. Sorry, Hornetal shuts down Psycho, and in and amongst the flurry, Kamikaze is going to try and get the plant down. Pino from the hatch, picking up a very important kill as a rotation. The diffuser was confirmed. It was all down to VNX, and he found the planter in Kamikaze, but the cover from NIP was just too good.
That's exactly what I was going to bring up as well. It's just the fact that NIP were really well covering the rest of the team. Muzi particularly doing work in that round. NIP were very quick to take the upstairs. They didn't really have all that much going against them either. By the time that the bathroom wall had been opened, and you already saw the piano floor getting open too, INTZ weren't pushing up as aggressively beneath as they did back in the last garage take in round number 1. It was INTZ's defensive aggression in round number 1 that facilitated them getting a lot of those early kills onto NIP and stopping the control of piano being taken, and thus a really substantial take of the site below. That simply wasn't the case in that round that we just saw. What it meant was the garage wall could be opened pretty quickly. Kamikaze had a great position to be able to get the plant, and NIP were well positioned to cover that as well as INTZ started to aggress upon them. So it was a nice round from leaving things 3-3 at the half. Kind of what you might expect on Consulate. It's certainly not out of the ordinary. Now it's NIP's turn to defend and INTZ's to attack. And this is, I say it a lot, but where I'm really curious. There's oftentimes a big difference between the ways that teams attack and defend because of the level of coordination that's needed on attack compared to defense itself. And when you're looking at a team that has maybe struggled a bit, maybe has only had real good performances lately, it's those attacks you want to be looking out for because they're what tell the story.
And I feel like, to a degree, Gio, NIP almost fall into that category as well with their performances recently, where we expect something of them here on the defense, particularly of sort of Muzi and Pino in terms of that opening kill sort of prowess that those two have gotten themselves. So for INTZ, I do feel like this could be a bit of an uphill battle for them because their attacks have come under our scrutiny at some points in them taking a lot of time to do things. Now, with some of their changes, we have seen things being mixed up a little bit. We mentioned earlier how Miranda actually was playing as a substitute for the last couple of games because VNX was unwell. Well, he is, of course, playing here tonight. But the interesting point there is that VNX is actually going to be playing Ace. That's a hard support operator. And instead, Duds is going to be continuing playing on that Ashe, as he did when Miranda was playing. Because when Miranda filled in, it was easier for her to pick up onto that support role. And it kind of forced a change that, you know, really went through the foundations of INTZ as a team, and multiple people changed the positions that were playing off the back of it. It looks for a time as though that stuck, and that to me is a good sign because we saw them play quite well in these newfound roles.
Look at this aggression onto Pino in the bathroom. Back when NIP were playing against FaZe, Pino had a lot of late reactions from that position. Great kill from Hornatow finally onto the player. Oftentimes when FaZe would make their really quick attacks onto the garage site, Pino would still spend a lot of time hanging around upstairs. But INTZ decided he was a priority and cleared him out almost instantly. Now INTZ are in a decent position to have control of the upstairs. Muzi too, taken out at the top of Spiral, just confirms that for INTZ, and they should have the opportunity to start moving down very soon.
2 opening kills when attacking onto a garage is huge because it just affords you so much freedom to open up the floor inside of that piano room. We can see that job is being done largely by Drunks now, and pre-fire shots come through. What about that for rotations being held vertically? Vitz picks up that kill onto Julio. It was Drunks that was in the initial engagement, but they're just holding so many crossfires. It's difficult for NIP to breathe here. Psycho and Kamikaze now. A lot of work here to do. Psycho, multiple angles to concern himself with. A hatch drop from Hornatow. He's going to drop to his death, unfortunately for him. But the final 2 kills come in quick, sharp. Vitz and Duds picking them up from the backside. Well, INTZ, they answered some of our questions there of their skill and prowess on attack. The question is, are they consistent with it?
Oh, I would love to believe so. You know, INTZ just simply look like a different team to what we saw at the start of the stage. And you could see the disappointment that NIP suffered from that round in Psycho's face at the end. Just completely looking defeated there. You can also see the nice thing about having the face cams too is you can see the communication going on. Who's doing all of the talking? Who is doing a lot of the... Like, you'll notice Kamikaze doesn't talk a ton. He's listening for the information that the rest of his team are giving. Which is interesting because he's playing a lot of hard support, but he's following their lead rather than providing it, as many players on the hard support might do. It's not necessarily super important to the way the game is being played. I just personally find it really interesting seeing where a lot of that is coming from and actually seeing it in action, because a lot of the time when we're just watching these games happen, especially when we don't have access to face cams and we aren't on LAN, you don't get to see the emotion behind it and the actual communication in action. We're very fortunate to have that available to us at the moment.
NIP, you're going to give it another shot downstairs in garage. Obviously feeling like that advantage that INTZ gained with those early couple of kills isn't something that INTZ are going to be able to repeat. And I'd wager that INTZ are pretty happy to attack down here again because they looked very good. And it was more than just a couple of nice kills that they got that were enough to get them that round. It was the way that they were able to work together as a team. And maybe a bit more invested into the roam in this round, as actually Psycho has picked Vigil. And there's a heavy off-site presence from NIP. INTZ have got a decision to make here. They can either choose to try and flush that roam out, or instead, they can look to just try and push the site. Now, the players from NIP will rotate fairly quickly if they do just try and push the site. And for a time, it looks as though that is what we are going to see as the wall does get opened. Very quickly, I might add, as INTZ are very focused on that garage door and not really focused about this roam game.
No, they're certainly being quite specific to their own objectives and their own ideas about how to do things. Drunk's going in on the Nook, straight in for the plant, I might add. Suddenly, we might have to see NIP just flood down to the site as they're still on this roam. He's got it down as well, Ollie. What is going on?
How has a plant gone down with 10 players alive inside of like the first half of the round? NIP have been read like a book here, and this is one of the hardest retakes to perform inside of this game. When that wall's open and people are hiding behind the car, it can be very difficult indeed. Julio is going to be a bit unfortunate there not to deal any damage as Moosey's going to drop into a Claymore, but no, the kill is gone instead. Somebody trying to defuse, but no, they're taken out also. Kamikaze, so many places to look, so many angles to challenge. He finds himself two. This could be huge. He goes for the third, but no. The shotgun will not work at that kind of a range as that's a little bit too long. Hornet out, flooding from the backside. What an attacking round from INTZ. They saw an opportunity. I mentioned that they might do it. Just ignore that roam game. They did just exactly that.
Listen. NIP can't deal with creative attack strategies onto Garage. I'm saying it now. Everything FaZe pulled out on them, couldn't do it. Now something like this, can't do it. Like, NIP are just not ready for creativity on this side. I actually really loved the way that INTZ went about that attack. It is so huge that they ignored the roam. And this is actually something that I've noticed in NIP's playstyle in a number of instances across a number of games, but even when they went in for the plant, NIP had this hesitation. They didn't immediately flood back to the site, as I suggested might happen. They didn't immediately act on it. They threw out a projectile to try and deny, but there was no pushing forward. There was no rush from them. There was no immediacy. What that meant is by the time that they did end up doing something, INTZ had so much time to set themselves up into a really advantageous position. We saw the same thing with FaZe. When I mentioned how Pino held on to Bathroom for so long, even though the rest of his team was being completely mangled down below, and it was only when he dropped down did he finally join in with that. He couldn't provide any value to the team, and there was no way he was going to be able to do anything on his own. It was a very similar situation to that. NIP just letting it happen in front of them and not acting quick enough. By the time they do act, it's already over because the attackers have set themselves up. It's something that seems to be an NIP problem, but we really can't take the credit away from the fact that INTZ just showed the ingenuity in that round and it paid the hell off.
Oh, no. Moosey's going to get taken down there as Duds. Beautiful rotation kill. A really common angle to be holding out there on that spiral rappel. Or should I say those windows outside of spiral stairs. Because you do get a nice angle into long desk as demonstrated there by Duds. NIP seem to be clutching at straws here with the clash pick because they're obviously wanting something to try and stop this flow of attackers because so far INTZ have been looking very good on the attack. They actually haven't lost an attacking round as of yet. There's no indication to say that that's going to come anytime soon as Duds finds a down over onto Psycho. Dips back out. A down's going to be enough for him at this point. It still throws a cat among the pigeons on the side of NIP as Kamikaze's left getting droned, knowing he's being pressured from the window, wondering where the next bout of pressure is going to come from. And it is going to be from these service stairs. You can see he's barking out orders there. He's asking for some sort of support and calling out where these attackers are pushing from. And NIP look like they are floundering a little bit. What do? Do they try and go for a rotation? Or do they try and fight this through long desk. The answer for a time seems to be they're going to challenge through long desk, but that isn't working for them either as Wits takes out Psycho. Hornetown now on this balcony. He's going to have an opportunity at taking down Kamikaze, though he will stun himself. But a push coming in from the equal side over by Drunks. Pino left inside of CEO, trying to hold a bit of a long angle. It seems as though INTZ can take a moment to breathe and drone here. But this round is really in their favor.
Really conspicuous were my magnet present there on the meeting wall. Was so easy to shoot off for INTZ. It could give them some room to throw in projectiles in behind Kamikaze if they need to. They have some time to work with, just burning out a lot of that utility with the flashbangs. A nice kill from Julio, but it's probably not going to be enough as VNX goes in for the plant.
Hornetown is able to cover him here from the balcony, and despite the clash, no one on the side of NIP able to do anything to stop that plant from going down. VNX finds one over onto Julio. Kamikaze gets one back as a trade as Pino tries, but he can't as he is going to be downed as well. Kamikaze now in a very tricky spot. 1 versus 3 with a plant down inside of meeting. He's on the clash, he has the pistol, and he has a shield on his back. But what good is that going to be when he is getting pushed from every conceivable angle? Wits with the kill through the hatch. Such a nice vertical there to finish things off. That puts INTZ onto a match point here.
Nuts. We saw it happen with FaZe Clan. Didn't know if it was going to happen once again with another top veteran Brazilian team, and it looks like INTZ could do it. I have to say, I feel a bit bad for Kamikaze in that round. He was being tossed around like a piece of meat, being used as bait, pushing straight up, trying to hold on to meeting. And when INTZ started to change where the attack was coming from, and a couple of players of NIP went down and they had to spread themselves a bit thinner, Kamikaze moved out into connector. That was INTZ's perfect cue to go in and make the plant. They used the smoke to cut off the connector door so no one from NIP could see where they were. They took the time to make the plant, and all those players from NIP were just kind of shoved up towards the CEO connector area of the map. What it meant is that they couldn't do all that much while the plant was going down, and they had to accept that the post-plant situation was coming. And that's when we saw Kamikaze actually whip out the SPSMG, get a couple of kills, and I sort of thought, yeah, you know what? If I'd have been you in this round, I would also be a bit fed up of holding the shield. Obviously a shame for him that he couldn't get that last kill required, but it puts INTZ in this absolutely fantastic position.
Well, it really does, because they need one more round here to take the game. Now, we've already spoken about the weight of this game, but it means something in the overall context of these 3 stages put together. And for INTZ to be able to come out and put on this kind of a showing, it shows us that they mean business. They have now 3 opportunities to take full points available here out of this match. They've done very well in their attacking phase so far. They actually haven't lost a single round. So there's no indication to us that we're going to see anything different here than an INTZ win. It'd take NIP digging extremely deeply to be able to pull something out here. Now, we are dealing with a different site. I believe we've gone to split this time, as we can see silhouettes out there inside of archives and tellers. And I don't think we've seen this site yet from NIP, Gio. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I know that we saw INTZ successfully defend it, but we haven't seen NIP bring it out yet. But it kind of just speaks to how they are still searching for something. They're still trying to make some sort of adjustment on the sort of the cosmetic level of like which site we're picking and stuff to give themselves some sort of advantage, or whether they're going to bring a clash or not. Now, this time we do see an opener. Julio is able to take down VNX, so that should do something to swing this round into NIP's favor.
Yeah, I actually just looked back to see the sites they went to in their game against FaZe, and NIP didn't defend this site then either. So this is quite new space for them. And I would assume that that probably suggests they have something planned. The fact they haven't brought a pulse means that, you know, they're leaning into a slightly more NIP-style defense. And by that, I mean pulse is quite standard. So if you want to deviate from that, it usually means that you have a reason for doing so. They've got a lot more of a roam-centric kind of defense. Wits narrowly missing the kills onto that player, but Hornetown's going to make up for it with a kill onto Julio. And we've got about a minute remaining. Kamikaze still holding on to the site. He does have quite low HP, which could be a problem. Oh, there's 2 kills from INTZ onto NIP. They just keep coming in, Ollie. Could this be it?
It seriously could. Pino's found 1, but how many more can he find? He's got the DMR. It isn't the gun to be taking multiple engagements with. Wits is going to be trying to get that plant down. Hornetow tried, but he couldn't. We're now locked into a 1 versus 1. What other way for this game to potentially be decided than a low hit point Wits going up against Pino? Now, information for Pino, it looks as though he's working on some, although he doesn't seem sure. He gets a glimpse. Both players miss the shots. Pino desperately trying to land. Wits tries to run away, but on 1 health, there was only one way that was ever going to go. Pino clutches up. We got a glimpse there of all the cameras and just how much that means to NIP. They hang in there for 1 more round.
Oh my god, and imagine if he hadn't just seen him through the rotate hole. Maybe that 1v1 would have gone a different way. But, man, NIP, they keep themselves in the game. At the very least, for now, they're still okay. But they're going to have to move on to a different site. It looks like they're going to go back to the basement again. This is that site that NIP have consistently had problems with. It's not that they've been outright terrible at defending Garage Cafe, but they just haven't looked as good as they should be. You know, it just seems like the teams that they face can get a hand over them on this site. Now, evidently, INTZ aren't going to go for the same strategy that they did before. And really, that Nook plant is something you can only pull off once. And it's great to see in that one time that it does happen. But they will have to go for something else. It looks maybe like they'll just go for a more standard push onto this site. Open up the garage door. And take control of the upstairs. Pino undoubtedly is going to be playing in bathroom. Julio's probably going to be placing his kite floor on that garage wall that will have to be dealt with. Maybe he'll try and trick with it. Not entirely sure. We might see Psycho playing a bit further back on the Maestro. Oftentimes you'll see him playing from either kitchen or security and holding onto angles through there. Sometimes you'll see a Maestro push all the way back into something like Harry Potter, so you can catch out anyone who might come in through the very back of the basement. So these are all potentials that could happen. Actually, it looks like Psycho's going to be upstairs, which is not super common.
Not super common, but just there for a time. I think he'll probably rotate his way back down. As NIP have gone back to what we saw them attempt the first time we saw them defend this bomb site, and that is just play somebody in public bathroom, try and keep control upstairs, but ultimately don't invest too much into it and be very ready to rotate down, because previously we saw them with a full extended roam, and they really paid for it. And they paid for it with an early plant, all 10 players alive, barely seen a minute and 10 of play, and the plant was going down. So that isn't going to be the case this time, as the garage door isn't open as of yet. It is still electrified by that electroclaw. So typically you would expect teams to get into piano and open up that way. And we see that process starting to happen now. Drunks is just going to jump in his drone, as it seems top floor has been called clear. Duds, he's going to be inside of Piano now. Now, there's a danger of a C4 below. Pino is out of position there. He's not inside of the public bathroom. He's going to be forced right back. That wall being left soft is a big hole in his defense. You could see some pressure pretty early here.
He's only going to feel it. You're going to hear the bullets bouncing off the shield in front of him as he reloads the shotgun. Just ready. He's actually having the yellow ping sent out to him, so he knows where that player is out in the main entrance in lobby. Just trying to shoot in. It's just a constant 1v1 at the moment. You can see other players from INTZ actually surrounding that public bathroom, and with the nade, that's going to be Pino's cue to jump on down. Duds was very effective here on the yellow stairs before, but without the rest of his team there to support, could be a bit risky to try and peek around as he currently is. Drunks can spot someone down below, but doesn't quite have the angle onto them, and is just going to take the time to open up more holes so that he can use them. Duds does finally get that first kill onto Julio, and he will undoubtedly be passing on the information of those players in security corridor along to the rest of his team.
Toxic Babe canisters are going to deny the push for a time, as VMX is looking to get his way in. NIP more than capable of dealing with this. They've still got plenty of utility, but they've lost some key and crucial areas, namely this hatch that Hornetau is going to be playing on. It's a nice angle to be able to watch. Muzi, he's got himself caught out at the back of sight as the plant is going down. Duds finds Kamikaze, but there is going to be a camera there that's going to try and deny the plan. VNX is, however, going to confirm it. All the kills come flying on in. I think our heads were in a bit of a spin there, but INTZ have done it yet again. The team that had just so much to show us based off their performance at the start of this stage continue to deliver the goods. They take down NIP here on Consulate.
It wasn't just a fluke. This is real. This is something that we can now expect from INTZ. Wow, what a great performance from them. And NIP are going to be walking away, scratching their heads most likely. This means that they have to win their game tomorrow if they are to make it in the Copa Elite 6. And